That also reminds me. I should give you the. So you were not able to get into the like consolidated chat like I am. Like you can't type in it. So if you wanted to chat with people, you could either. Do you have Twitch? Do you have a Twitch account?
Yes.
Okay, let me give you the Twitch pop out chat, so you won't have the. I'll give you the URL, so it'll give you the chat but without the video, and then you won't have to worry about like the lag and stuff. If I can remember how that goes. Let's see. Come on. Switch to pop out chat. Okay, so I think if you go there, that should give you the chat.
Thank you.
Okay, and is this muted? Let's see. Let's go. Actually, I don't even care about that. Okay, we'll move that over there. Okay. Hey, people are joining. Oh shit. Wow. I mean, shoot. Sorry. We've yet to just we aren't really sure what our last week when my colleague Kat Cosgrove was on and she asked, what our profanity policy was, I was like, I don't know. We keep it PG-13, which means like maybe one F-bomb, but we're trying to keep it a little profesh, but who knows? We'll see where we go. But yeah, it was funny when we started because I was kind of like, I was telling Rizèl, I'm like, the first few minutes, it takes a minute for people to join, blah, blah, blah. And then, so I'm like, let's set some stuff up. And then it's like, oh man, look, people have joined the stream. People are here. So anyway, I am joined by my friend Rizèl, who is a developer advocate over at GitHub. And we're going to be talking about Git. So get ready. Maybe this episode needs to go beyond PG-13. If we're talking about Git, the profanity might... I don't know. When I use Git, there's a lot of swearing. So
I can understand that. I swear a lot when I'm rebasing.
Yeah. Maybe you can explain rebase, like, and help me figure it out, because I've been using Git for like 10 plus years and I still never remember which direction is what, and I'm just sort of like, I guess I got that right. But we'll dig into that in a minute. If you're in the chat, we'd love to hear your thoughts on Git. I know. So Rizèl, just for anybody who doesn't know, just like maybe a little background on like, what do you do? What's your, how'd you end up on this nonsense with me?
Yeah. So like Matt said, I'm a developer advocate. I'm a junior developer advocate at GitHub. I've been here for like 6 months. Before that, I was a software engineer at like different startups for like 3 years. And how did I end up on here? You DM'd me, and I was like, heck yeah.
Like, sure, what else am I doing? So we've got a couple of different things that we're going to kind of talk about. So one thing actually that I think would be interesting. So one of, as always, anything to do with technology, people like to fight about things constantly, right? Like, should you do this, blah, blah, blah. So one of the things that, and sometimes I feel like unintentionally it verges on gatekeeping. We're going to put that part aside for a minute. We're just going to say this isn't good fun. But, like using the command line versus a GUI, like what's sort of I have my opinion. I'd like to hear your opinion.
Yeah.
By the way, and in the chat, tell us your opinion. None of your opinions are wrong unless you disagree with me. So, yeah.
For me, I prefer the command line because that's how I learned. And I don't know, I can visualize it better that way. But I will say when I first started coding, the command line did look scary. I was like, oh my goodness, this looks like what I see people in movies do. But now that I look at movies, I'm like, they're not even typing anything.
That's not even a thing.
But I will say, like, if you're new to coding, like, I know one thing that like GitHub is noticing is like a lot of new developers, they're not necessarily comfortable with the command line. So they haven't been using version control, and they're like saving all their code in like Dropbox and stuff. So if you're new and you're like, oh man, the command line sucks and I'm confused by it, like you can use the GUI. You can use GitHub Desktop and everything else.
Also, if you're not new and you've been doing this for 10 plus years, you can still use the GUI sometime.
That's true.
And it's not that I'm scared of the command line. There are just certain things. Now, it depends. I haven't used GitHub Desktop in quite some time, and it was kind of so I have my own preference. And so I'll actually show you a little bit maybe about like why I like to use the GUI a little bit. Or use a GUI. I shouldn't say the because there's lots of different ways and they do different things. So the one that I really like to use, which I'm unfortunately is not free, but this is not me shilling for them, although maybe they could give me a discount code. Yeah, it's called Tower, and let me see if I can make this bigger. Oh,
you froze for me. Ooh. I don't know if you froze for me and everybody else, or can y'all tell me in the chat if it's me that's frozen or Matt? Let me type in the chat.
I feel like this might not. Can still.
Oh, Matt froze.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, it was
my
our internet just
then I won't leave.
Just died. You can hear me now, yes?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So we're sitting there as it's going, and I'm hearing this error, and then I hear my son from the other room going, "Is the Wi-Fi down?" So, of course, PulumiVision fans notice that we have just not been having the best of experience. Although Rizèl, your video is frozen for me.
It's frozen? Oh no.
I'm gonna try to re-add you. Why don't you turn your? I don't know. Hey, can everybody?
Am I moving now?
There you go. Okay, good enough. Hey, sports fans. Okay, back to technology. The technology we intended to talk about. So this tool is called Tower, and also, let's see. What I was trying to do was figure out if there was a way to make this bigger, but there really isn't. But that's okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go find a repo, and like, there's a good one. So this is Pulumi Hugo. So this is actually the repo that we use for Pulumi for our blog and docs and, kind of like a lot of stuff that drives our website. And so part of the reason is I know there's going to be a lot of activity in there. So I like it because it gives me visualization of the branches and stuff. I can see where I'm at. But there's actually a couple really neat things in there too. It has, I don't have this all set up right now but you can actually connect it to, if you've got it synced into like your GitHub account. So if I were to look at here, let me actually find a different one. Oops. Let's do this one, might be right.
Okay.
There we go. Okay, cool. Right. So this is the DevOps Days website one. So I can see all the PRs and I can actually check out that pull request directly. And then that'll create a local branch of it. I can do all my stuff. I can connect to it. And then, branches review. Oh, interesting. That's new. But mostly it's because I always get confused about stashes. So I need my stashes like in a place I can see them, which really helps. And then also just like the diffing helps me a ton when I can visualize it this way. And yeah. So I also use I use the CLI a lot too.
Yeah.
Like sort of a lot depends on what I'm trying to do. And if I'm trying to like just sort of do my day by day little bits, it's still much faster for me to do git checkout -b branch name, be done with it, right? Do my git pull, do all that, then go into the GUI. But when I'm especially doing kind of some complicated cherry picking, or I want to commit some files but not others or whatever, and I really want to see what I'm doing. So I think the answer to me is, should I use the command line or a GUI? The answer is yes. right? Like
Yeah.
you can use both in conjunction. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff that comes on that. So, and I know, like I said, Tower is not free. I know there's another tool people like a lot called Git Kraken. Like,
I've heard of that one.
yeah, and I think it's very similar. That one I think is free. So yeah, I'd be, and it's kind of that's sort of one of the things. Do you have any like fun little? What's something about Git that you know now because now you're at GitHub, or even about GitHub? Something with this workflow that you wish you had known before. Like, is there something where you're like, oh my goodness, if I had known this like a year ago, how much time I would have saved?
Yeah. For me, it's been getting to use GitHub Copilot.
Mm.
I mean, I just didn't have access to it because I was
Yeah.
still on the waiting list.
I was going to say also because it sort of didn't exist before you worked there also a
Yeah.
little bit, right? Like,
But I really like it because, okay, basically, I don't have like an example to show, but basically, one time I was like trying to insert somebody's name into like this text file, and it had to be like inserted in like alphabetical order and all that. Like it was like their at handle and everything. It was mad confusing, and I was like, oh, I don't really feel like sitting here and trying to figure out the algorithm for that. And then I like wrote a comment. Like I forgot I had GitHub Copilot installed. I wrote a comment. I'm like, we'll need to do this, we'll need to do that. And then GitHub Copilot just generated all the code for it. And I was like,
oh,
oh, thank you.
wow.
Press tab. Like literally the experience of coding was so much faster than I thought it was going to be. But yeah, that's like the main thing. Also, this is not I learned about this before I started at GitHub, but I learned about it a little bit later on, like maybe my third year as a software engineer. Actually, it's about Git, called Git Bisect, and
Mm-hmm.
that helped me to find bugs easier. So basically, you can like, if I remember it properly, you can compare your commit from before you've seen a bug to the current commit that you're on now, and it'll help you like filter or figure out when that bug appeared. Because a lot of times I was like trying to debug things and I'm like, I don't know when this happened, why this started happening. But it kind of helped me to like decide between, okay, here's when the code was actually working, here's when the bug was introduced, and then I can like debug a little bit faster.
I think that's it. Git Bisect is one of those too where like it's just the fact that when you were trying to explain it, it's like, how do I get this in there? And then it's like you do it and you're like, oh, right, I get it. It happens. That's where that comes in. And I think there's unfortunately a lot of things in Git that are like that, where they just are conceptually hard. And one of the things where I think it gets complex is a lot of times we just want to be able to use something and not have to dig into the how. But I
Yeah.
know, like, I have tried to read the O'Reilly book on Git 3 times. And like it's interesting, but it is like really in the weeds about just
Yeah.
how Git works under the hood. And I will say this, like, the more you understand what it actually is doing, all the porcelain, all the stuff on top of it makes more sense, because a
Yeah.
lot of it doesn't make any sense. You're like, why do I do this? And that's why there's that, right, that XKCD, which is like, as soon as something's janky on my repo, I just blow the whole thing away. And first I have like the one person I know in chat that I ask, and if they can't fix it, I just delete the whole thing and reclone, right? Like, which
That
is
was
not,
me.
that's not a way to live your life, except that it is the way that I live my life.
That was me in boot camp. There were
Yeah.
so many deleted repos. It was sad.
Well, and just sometimes because it can get to, and what's interesting, so I was thinking a little bit, this is sort of a GitHubby thing. Like sometimes features get in the way of like a workflow. So one thing that I found really interesting, so we use, you saw the repo, we have a GitHub repo we use for, like, for example, writing blog posts, or that's how we publish blog posts at Plumi. And so then they go through code review. That's sort of how, so say I'm going to write a blog post, and then one of my colleagues, they will look at it and read through it and make comments and adjustments. And
Yeah.
one of the things that's interesting is one of my colleagues, she really likes to do suggested commits. So that's a thing you can do, right?
I was gonna say this. Okay, keep going.
Okay, but here's the thing. Okay, so imagine I have a blog post, and that blog post is one big file.
Yeah.
And so let's say my colleague, let's call her Laura, because that's her name, is going through and she makes like 15 different suggestions. There's no way for me, to my knowledge, and if you know or anybody else knows, there's no way I can squash all of those suggestions into one commit. So what happens is I go through all of them, and not only does that end up with a whole bunch of commits, but because on every commit it builds a preview, it runs our CI, it ends up like it's just ka-chung, 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 ka-chung.
I didn't
So
think of that.
yeah, it's there. I don't think there's a way you can say, like, again, because that's what you'd want to do, is just sort of be like sort of stage them, but
Yeah.
you're not staging them because, well, you're committing, but it's committing into GitHub, which makes the CI run, right? It's you're it should be a Git, like there should be a way that you could put the button that would be like add it, and then you commit all the change, what you would do on your side. So it's really good for if you've got a couple things. If you're doing a big deep review with lots of suggested changes, it ends up making for a really messy. Now, of course, if you're going to squash everything on the merge, and when you merge the PR, your history will be fine. But in the process, especially if you have a long build, or even worse, a build that uses a lot of minutes or something, and you've now had that one thing, required a whole bunch. So.
Oh, that's good feedback, actually. I didn't even think about that. Like multiple suggestions. Ugh, I didn't think about that. Good point.
Yeah, I don't know, but I love the idea. And then there was something I know I was suggesting a different. This is also just why everyone's workflows are different.
Yeah.
Because you'll go and you'll say like, "Hey, I wish you did this thing," or whatever. And I'm trying to remember exactly why, but I suggested to one of my colleagues on a community project that I really would appreciate if, they used suggested, so that I could just smash, yes, I'm fine with it. I don't have to go and translate your comment into my code. And I think I was actually trying to find, when we had the chat about it, about why this person told me they don't like doing it, and it was from a different project they were on. And I think it's because it was something to the effect of like, those commits don't end up getting signed the same way or something. So it was like, again, but it all depends on what you're trying to do, right? Like,
yeah, I didn't know that either. My ideal way is how you said. I do like when people just suggest it instead of like, oh, here's what you should do. Then I got to reopen VS Code and figure out what they meant.
Right. Now this is going to drive me crazy that I can't find this chat. Anyway, whatever. I was later on. Maybe I'll post it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Or, on the off chance, Bridget Cromhout, that you're watching this stream. I know you're not. You could remind me why you don't like doing things that way. Anyway, good stuff. Okay, what anybody in the chat have any like cool Git suggestions while you're thinking about it? But I think one of the things that would be fun that we were starting to talk about, it's not really about Git, but I was asking Rizèl like some stuff that she might want to talk about, and she's like, well, I have this VS Code extension I wrote. And I'm like, you did what? So I would love like a little, like if we could kind of take a look at it, you could talk about it a little bit, tell us about it, but then maybe kind of show it to us a little bit, like not demo-y, but just actually I'd be
demo it. It's short.
Okay, totally demo it, but I'd be really interested to sort of see how you create it, like what it looks like behind the scenes, because I'm intrigued. It's funny because I always was like, well, it'd be cool to like write some like Pulumi Visual Studio extension, but Rizèl, Pulumi, there's no such thing because it's all just in the language, right? Like, what would a Pulumi VS Code extension do? I guess I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't be a language helper because that just comes from the package. It comes from the language. What would you do? I mean, could you do like because like the GitHub action for Pulumi like does a preview.
Yeah, I guess you could do that in VS Code extension form too.
It would just be whatever it runs at the command line. It wouldn't be very exciting, but I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
gonna think about that. But in the meantime,
I'll share mine.
yeah, let's
I
see what we got.
I feel like I
Let
should.
me know when you're ready for me to
Yeah,
show.
I can show it. Hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go ahead and
Okay. Okay.
actually, because I'm gonna do a couple things. But basically, I'm
That's
gonna
fine. I just want to make sure that I didn't like surprise you by,
show my
sharing your screen
screen.
that has like your password manager on it or something. Because
No,
heaven knows that I'm the one that does stuff like that, not you.
I do have that up, but like for a reason. But then I just realized I'm not running this locally anymore because the VS Code extension's published, so I don't need to do this. But basically, I'll demo it, and then after that, I will like talk about the code behind the scenes. But basically, what this VS Code extension does is it deploys your repo to GitHub Pages, and the reason I made it is because the VS Code team at Microsoft does like a workshop for people who are like learning to code, and they wanted like an easier way for them to deploy to GitHub Pages rather than like leaving the IDE, going to GitHub and doing a whole bunch of stuff.
That makes sense.
So I'm gonna just like make a fake repo, which there's so many in this.
Yeah. You should sometime like should do a stream where I'm like where it's like, how people like collect domain names. I feel like DevRel people like have bajillions of repos and local source code folders that are for one thing ever.
Yeah.
Like I have this folder it's just called like, yeah, my SRC folder is organized for stuff I really work on, and then there's just a bunch of random folders for like live stream with Jay, demo for new rel,
That's literally how I'm like.
and then you never clean it up again, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
It's a mess. Like, oh, fake repo already exists. Oh, wow. Okay.
That's pretty amazing.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, like look at my. Okay, this one I have a ton of fake users too, but look, like fake repo, random GitHub page, good, random. Like this is a mess. But anyways, so basically I made a repo, and what I'm gonna do in VS Code is I'm going to press my VS Code extension. I think it's already installed and stuff like that here. And if I do Command P, that pulls up the extensions, deploy to GitHub Pages, and right here, I don't know if you guys can see it. If it's big enough.
Yeah, that's a little better probably, but yeah.
Cool. It shows like a list of the repos I have on this user because I've already like logged in and authenticated. And if I press fake repo, and press publish on the left-hand corner, right-hand, whatever, it says your GitHub page will be available in a few minutes. So GitHub Pages to be deployed uses an action. So I kind of got to wait for it to finish building and deploying before it like actually generates the URL. So we will wait.
Does GitHub Pages still do that thing where it deploys to like a different branch in the repo thing? That's how they work, right? Like,
yeah, I think so. From my knowledge, yeah.
Okay, but so like because if you go into fake repo, right? Like it'll have the code. It doesn't really have it, right? But if there's maybe
actually no, maybe it doesn't anymore.
Maybe it changed. Okay, you used to because the theory I guess was that you would have a different branch. Like you'd have the GitHub pages that were for your project, so you didn't want it in main.
Yeah.
But it was actually really confusing to like maybe it's an option now to say what branch to use, but it used to be
I think it is
pages. Let's see. There it is, right? Yep. Yeah, that's
I think because I only have the main branch on here.
Yeah. Okay. That's actually interesting to know.
Yeah.
Hey.
But I could talk about like how
I want to see how you did how you built the extension.
Yeah. Okay. So it was a lot for me to figure out like the patterns that they use. I don't know. It was a little different than I'm used to. But there's like a file called extension.ts, which I use TypeScript for this, and nobody judge me because I use any a lot in here. I'm like I was just getting lazy.
Get it done, right?
Yeah. But basically, first it has
So,
go
sorry,
ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt. I just want to. So, is extension kind of the entry point, if you would? I mean, I know it's not really, but that's like you have that, and then you've got.
Yeah,
It looks like you've got other functions and stuff in other files, but the minimum you have is an extension.ts.
yeah.
Or what can you write these in? Do you know?
You could write it from what I've seen, you can write it in a language of your preference. Um, I didn't see any like limitations. I just wrote this in TypeScript.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
But yeah, this is like my entry point JavaScript file. And basically the first thing I had to do was get the credentials for the user. And that was actually pretty interesting for me. Because at
That's
first,
the. Sorry, I'm sorry. The GitHub credentials.
yes, the GitHub.
Because you're talking to GitHub, like so,
Yeah.
like you don't always need this, but you do because you're
Yeah,
yeah.
because I
Okay,
needed to
got
make
it.
an API call. That's good for this clarification, actually. I need to make an API call to get the list of the user's repos, and that's like something that you need an access token for first. So at first I had it like hard coded here, like GHP, blah blah blah, whatever it is, and I was like, I have absolutely no idea like how you will get um the user's access token. But there's like a thing in VS Code. Like VS Code has an API. So you like use this thing called VS Code authentication. It gets the session that you're in. And this I don't know how to explain this part, but basically it'll save your VS Code, like your authentication password inside of your keychain access thingamajig here. Does that make sense to you?
I think so.
I feel like maybe not. So let me see if
Oh
I
wait, let me see that again.
can.
Sorry, I was tweeting to tell everybody about the interesting things you were talking about,
Oh,
and then
oh
therefore
yeah.
missed the interesting thing you were talking about.
No.
So you're pulling the
The access token for
from Keychain.
I'm putting it into Keychain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
How
So
does that work? Is that but that's not the OS keychain. That's the
that's the access token for GitHub.
no no. Okay, but it's like does VS Code have a keychain? Is that the
Oh, yes.
That's
Yes.
what I meant. It's not like because on a Mac there is keychain, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, if you're because I actually do that with secrets for like for example, if I have environment variables that are secret, I
Yeah.
put them in the OS, the Mac OS keychain, and then my Bash profile knows how to access them at source time. Anyway, so that's why I heard keychain and I was like, wait a minute, how does that work? But it's so
No.
VS Code itself has a so you're getting that credential and you're accessing it from code's keychain.
Yeah, because like
Got it.
if
Okay.
I debug this, I can show basically if I run it locally, let me see. Uh-huh. I will have to uninstall it. But yeah,
That's okay. We believe you. Like that's
yeah. Basically, it'll go through that. And then another thing that was interesting is like figuring out the scope of like because each access token has like what do you want, like what permissions do you want to give for this access
Mhm.
token. So at first I was like, yo, this API call was not working. But apparently I had to like give it a scope of like getting access to the repo and my workflow and to the user's email. So once that was all done, I had access to OctoKit and I can like make API calls that way.
Mhm.
I hope that made sense. But
No, totally. Okay.
okay, cool. Then after that, I have another file called that handles all the like repository stuff. Um, and first I got the list of repos and I did like an API call using OctoKit and basically it got the list for the users right here. And it returns that list. And it only returns like the top 10 repositories. I have no clue how to like make it return any more than that.
I was gonna say you would think you would want it to
Show more, right?
well, or not. I mean, it's or you should be able to do a type ahead because, like, thinking if it's going to list all of them, like that's some
That's
people
true.
have like a lot of
Yeah.
repos, you know.
Maybe let me see if they have a in the type definition for this. Maybe they have like a limitation. or like you can increase it?
Well, I think also because I've done a few things with GitHub API, and you definitely, like the results can be paginated too. You know what I mean? So that you're only, because I've run into that with I have a long abandoned changelog generator called Bowie, because there was actually a really good changelog generator that's written in Ruby that I've liked for a long time, but it was making me have Ruby exist in projects just so that I could use the changelog generator.
Oh,
And so I wrote one in Go, but it doesn't require Go. It's just a binary. But that's where I was starting to run into. It was one of those things that's fun. Like, again, this is a good testing story. I was like, cool, because I would point it against some of my own repos, and I'm like, awesome. Because what does a changelog generator have to do? It has to go and has to find all the closed issues, all the stuff, and figure out what's changed and blah, blah, blah. And then I pointed it against, this was when I was working at Chef more than a few years ago. I pointed it at one of our repos, and it just blew up because it was like, because I think I pointed at Chef at like the core Chef repo, and there were like thousands upon thousands, so it's like, how do you paginate? How do you do whatnot? And I don't know, maybe I'll dust that one off. Maybe that'll be a fun future stream as we'll go play with the Bowie. By the way, if in case anybody's wondering, actually does anybody know why I called it Bowie? This is a stretch. So it's okay. So think about Bowie as in David Bowie, as in changes.
Oh, wow.
I was trying to think of a bad pun about changes, and I was like, I came up with Bowie. So yeah.
I like that.
So yeah, cool. Okay. So how do you
get that down, or
well, like, okay, so you did the thing where you have commands, right? Where you do the command palette. Like how are those defined?
Yeah. There's this thing, VS Code quick pick.
Oh, the quick pick. Okay.
Yeah. I actually I'm not really sure if I wanted it really that way, and with that little toast that came up, I wanted a better way than that, but that's what I found that could work. But yeah, I was using VS Code quick pick item, and it takes in these properties like a label, a description, and a detail. So those are like the little words at the bottom, I think, is the detail, and then the label was the icon that I had. I don't know if you remember it, but basically,
yeah, I saw the little
but yeah, that's how I did that part. And what else did I do? Basically, I just looped through, I just showed that list, looped through it, and if someone clicked one of where's the click section? Yeah, so if there was a selection, then it would run this function called post to GitHub pages, and that's just the API call posting to GitHub pages. So it was pretty cool. I liked it.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. Yeah. And I'm going to try to think about what a Pulumi extension would do. Because again, it's not going to be about testing or type, because the language, that's the whole point, right? Is you get all that stuff for free, but could be something fun in there. I dropped the and I put it in the overlay, so it's if you go to GitHub, if you go to Matt Stratton /Bowie, my favorite thing is you look in the installation directions, it's like you can install Bowie in multiple ways. You can do go get, you can do homebrew, everything else is to do, not yet available. You want to install it with chocolatey? Not yet. You want to install it with yum? Not yet. Does it even work? Who knows?
I'm about to start. This is
cool. I should go back to it. It was I think my bigger problem really was that actually I need to go back. I had a GitHub bot that was running for a while that on a lot of my repos that would automatically close issues that were stale. So the problem with that is then when you have a project you don't touch for years, all the issues you make for yourself that matter just get closed, right? Because I'm a big believer. It's funny. It's very fun to look at projects that are mine and I'm the only contributor and look at how active the conversations are in the issues. So there'll be an issue that, this one they have a whole bunch, but there was I remember there was one project I was working on and literally I was the only contributor and there's an issue that has 35 comments on it and they're all me arguing with
Oh, you're
myself.
talking to yourself.
It's just me talking to myself.
No.
But the thing is, as much as we joke about it, that actually is really effective because
Yeah.
you don't necessarily remember what you're thinking at any given time. So it's giving you that sort of capture of like, as you're working through it, like, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Sometimes I record myself. Like that way I can go back. Cause I'm like,
yeah.
what was I writing? Like, I don't know. Yeah. I love that.
Cool. Let's see. There were a couple other things we were thinking were neat. Okay. So talk about this invite automation because I don't know what it means, but I know that invites are annoying. So it seems like I would be interested in this.
Yeah, I think you would. Well, you have no choice because I'm going to show it.
All right, fair enough. There we go.
So basically, I did this for both G Code and GitHub. So GitHub has like a maintainers group. But for the PM, it's a lot for people to be like, hey, I want to get added. And then we go and add them and like the back and forth. So she wanted like an automated way to just have them be invited. So I made something where like if they starred, at first I was going to make it like completely automated. But the issue is it could be someone who's like a spammer, a bot, someone who doesn't actually belong in the maintainers group. And we still needed some type of like filter. So basically, if they start the repo, it opens an issue. This is a GitHub app, I guess. It opens the issue, and then that issue will have. Let me just show my screen, and you're gonna see there's 39 issues open because I haven't approved people yet. But some of these people haven't responded.
Can I share your screen?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead and show it.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Let me see if there's someone that's a good example. Okay. Yeah. All right. So when people start this repo, it'll open an issue. That's why there's like 39 pending issues right now. And we can like look at nerd oof or 00f whatever. So as soon as that opens, you get this little invite automation bot that asks them a couple questions that just vet to see like, is this person truly a maintainer? And they'll comment answering. I guess nerd oof didn't really answer all the questions, but
but the theory is there.
So. Yeah, the theory is there. And then again, this is not really me answering. It's a bot saying like, we received your request.
Yeah.
And if I wrote approved, maybe I can find like a closed one that was like a test one for myself. Yeah, I have a ton. If I write approved, then it'll say like, congratulations, another response, and it'll send the invitation to the person and they'll accept it and get added to the maintainers group. I didn't show you the code for that. Let me see. Ooh, I'm not supposed to share that. Actually, I can just open it up in code spaces.
Okay, well, that's another thing that we can see that is cool.
Yeah. But I thought I had fun making this. I thought it was interesting. Code spaces is not recognizing that. Oh, there we go. Sometimes doesn't recognize that I'm a staff member. Cool. And probably people on your stream probably know what code spaces is, right?
Maybe. I would like to know a little bit more about it because I use something similar. So I use Gitpod a lot for workshops and stuff.
Gitpod is good, yeah.
So, but I'd like to know a little bit more about code spaces because I'm interested to see how it could work for some of the stuff that I'm doing.
Yeah. I have not used Gitpod, but I heard a lot of good things about it. I feel like most parts are obvious. It's just your browser. I mean, IDE inside of your browser. But what I like about it is it takes all the configurations that you already had set in VS Code and puts them in here. So that's the extent that I'm familiar with and like it for.
But you can do like run a container or something like that, right? So like I'll tell you the reason I like using Gitpod for workshops like, for example, let's say I'm teaching a Pulumi workshop.
Yeah.
What I don't want to have to deal with is like, what are all the things you have to install on your computer? Like,
Yeah.
make sure you got Pulumi installed and whatever. So if you look at like our workshops that are in Gitpod, one of the, it loads a container that will have Pulumi installed in it. It has whatever language, so it's like if we're going to teach in Python, then you'll know it's running in a container that has the version of Python that we understand and we want to talk about. So you don't have to deal with like, oh, which Python do you have, or did you install Pulumi? Did you do whatever? And even to the fact that like, if I'm teaching a Kubernetes workshop, I can actually temporarily, very quickly, I spin up a temporary cluster and I can shove the kube config into everybody's container so they have access to it. So
yeah, no, you could do that. That's true. Good point of bringing that.
But the difference is the code spaces cost money, right?
Yeah,
I think that's why.
Enterprise.
Yeah.
But I do. Yeah, it does cost money. It is for enterprise, and I still think Gitpod, from what I've heard, it sounds pretty cool. So I wouldn't knock it at all. But yeah, I think it's like similar features, just that GitHub costs money.
I kind of want to play with it because I'd like to. I think I will because I'd like to see. I think it has a different use case too.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that's nice with Gitpod is you can just sort of you just sort of put the big button on your README. If someone just wants to fire it up, which is like code spaces, they're incurring something, right? But like but yeah, I want to play with it a little bit because there's got to be some good mix for both.
And I want to look at Gitpod like low key, but maybe I'll do that later. Yeah, I mean, I can help you out with getting to play around with code spaces. So just remind me.
Oh, actually, if you want to, let's go ahead. If it won't go to, I'll show you a real life Gitpod thing to do. Go to in your browser, go to github.com/DevOpsDays/DevOpsDays-web. Dash web.
Okay.
DevOps Days is DevOps Days is the org, and the repo is DevOps Days-web. So you got an extra DevOps in there. Too much DevOps. Okay, cool. All right, so scroll down. No. Scroll down into the README. Okay, click on Open in Gitpod, and yeah, okay. So let's sort. So what this is going to do? Yeah, blah blah blah. Sure, give everybody access to everything. It's fine. Why not? What could go wrong, as we learned last week? So what this is going to do, and this one's going to take a hot second because, so the DevOps Days website runs using Hugo, which is static site generator, right? Yeah. And it takes on a container, it takes a minute or two to build. Yeah. So what's happening is you'll see though that it's gonna. So now it's building the container, doing all the stuff that has the version of Hugo that we support. And it will start running, it will build the site, and then it'll actually, you'll see in Gitpod, it's going to pop a window that's actually also the preview of the website, because it's as you make changes, because it's sort of running in watch mode like you could with Gatsby or whatever. So again, this is taking a couple minutes for a few reasons. One, you don't have the container image ready and blah, blah, blah. So we can sort of let that one sit for a second. But the part of the reason, again, like I really like this and I'm trying to get it to work, it's really coming down to just documentation. So the way to give a little background for people watching to know why this is a weird problem to have to solve. So there, as much as you might think there is one universal DevOps Days organization across the whole world, there is not. Every local DevOps Days in Minneapolis, New York, Chicago, Amsterdam, whatever, those are all independent groups that are loosely organized with a core. Okay, cool. Something's happening. Okay, so if you now, give it a second because see how it's starting to pop some windows up here for you.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm having a hard time because the
terminal.
The terminal is blocked by our beautiful faces. So you see it's doing the build. So what's going to happen? So you see it's starting, it's building sites. You see Hugo is running, And when it's done, that's when it's gonna add a pane in your Visual Studio, in your code, that is the preview of the site. And you would actually see that if you changed the content, it
And we'll
will,
get updated.
do it in real life. And so the reason, okay, so while we're thinking about it, the reason why this matters is, so to get your DevOps Days event on the website, you have to put in a pull request. You basically have to, add some stuff into Hugo and put in a pull request. So I have an open source project for all practical purposes that has hundreds of contributors around the world who touch it once a year, maybe. So, and I cannot put any kind of requirement on what it takes. There it goes. So there you go. Okay, so you have your terminal that's running, but then so you see the website there, and
this is cool.
If you were to go in and make a change, it would. So, like, I'll tell you a change you can do real quick. Here, actually, scroll. Click on. It doesn't even matter. Pick the first DevOps Days we want to do. Let's just there's a logo. I just want to go to Raleigh. Click on Raleigh. Okay, scroll down just a second, just to see what we're going to change. Okay. Cool. Okay, so now go into the content folder.
Okay, figured.
Not static. Sorry, there's the one above.
Another content.
Content. Yep, and then go to events. Scroll down to 2022 Raleigh. Okay. Go to the welcome.md. That's the main page. And let's see. Right underneath the. Oh, it's fine. Just underneath that div, just do like the last one, just somewhere inside the HTML. It doesn't matter. Not inside the row div. Yeah, sure. Yeah, just throw some HTML and put a big old H1 or something that'll be easy to find.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Save it. And then go back to simple browser.
There it is.
And there it is, right? So this is really awesome for the people that are doing it, because they have the build, but they don't have to worry about, do I have Hugo installed? Do I have whatever? And then they can just do the part they have to do. And there's a lot of stuff that comes up. And anyway, there's a lot of stuff with how the site gets built where people are like, why don't you do this thing with Gulp? And you could do this, and you could have this awesome thing. And I'm like, because the only two things I can ask for contributors are they have Git and they have Hugo.
Yeah.
So we have to do a lot of funky stuff. But so this is sort of like a way you can sort of be it, like it's like a way if you're using a static site generator. These are all things we would normally do, right? Like you do Gatsby develop. So think about if Gatsby is your jam, this same thing works just as well. Yeah. And we did this with so the DevOps Party Games website that I do way back when we used to do those more regularly. That all runs in Gatsby, and we also put it all in Gitpod just to make it easier to be able to say, because some of this is even if I have all this stuff locally, sometimes I just want to crack open the browser and just do a quick change. Yeah. But I want to see what it's going to do.
This is good for CSS.
Yeah. So, for sure. Yeah. You can see it live. You can do the piece. So again, think about if you've taking this to it could be more. This is just a static site generator, but your web app or whatever that you're working on has to do this stuff, and then this way you're like, I've got it all. So like if you go scroll up to the top of the file system on the Explorer, go into the or close this up. What is the file? Gitpod.yaml. Sorry, .gitpod.yaml. It's after all the folders. Whoop. It's in between. It's right after the git ignore.
I literally don't.
The dot git. There it is. Oh, you're so close.
Oh wait, I found it.
There it is. Yeah. Okay. So this is the things that say when you start it up, what should you do? And this is pretty easy. It just says install Hugo, do this. But like if I wanted another container running, maybe I had a dependency. Maybe I have a container that runs MongoDB that my app connects to, and I just need to have it ephemerally running. I could define all this stuff. And just for everybody that's listening, I am 99.9999% sure that CodeSpaces works exactly like this.
It does. I have a video of it, I think. I'll share it.
Yeah. It's the same idea, but this was easier to illustrate. This is really the thing I love about this concept Codespaces, Gitpod, whatever, is we've been trying to do this in different ways for a long time. And this is why, so it's within an organization, you want to have developers, you want to have a clean and consistent workstation, right? Where you develop on, because we know as we're messing around with stuff, we're getting all sorts of weird versions of shit installed or whatever, or you might have something set up different than me, blah, blah, blah. So like what we used to do in the early days of cloud, because that's when we could do it, or you might do it within your VMs, you would have like a VM, right? Whether it was an AWS or a local VM in VMware or something that you would SSH into, that was built according to, this is our standard developer thing. And I know I could do that. This is just such a brilliant, like, with both Codespaces and Gitpod, next evolution, where it's like you didn't have to do that, and everything's so fast that you could be like, let me just start it over. I could even have a version for this branch as I'm doing that. So, and I know people that like this lets you work with just a tablet, right? You want to just jam with your iPad, you can do that, right? You can basically, working in the browser. It's a crazy place we live right now.
Yeah, no, it is game changing, I think. I want to find the video for people so I can put it.
Oh, about Codespaces? Yeah, for sure.
I'll stop sharing so that I can find it. But like it's pretty much set up pretty similarly.
Yeah, if you drop that in my chat, I'll put that into while you're thinking about that, I just want to know what this get emojis is. Because it just sounds fascinating. I'm like, I need to know. So this was the one where Rizèl's like, we might get to it. I'm like, we got 9 minutes. Let's talk about it for a minute. You don't even have to show it. Just tell us about it.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was like the first project I did at GitHub. It was just basically leveraging GitHub's API for the emojis, and it would like, I used the open source project called Fuse.js that helped me to do fuzzy searching with it. And it would like pop up if you started typing in the name of an emoji, it would pop up. But I had put it in the chat because I used the Pulumi GitHub action that allowed me to like do a live preview. That's why I put it in.
Oh, right. I was going to say this. I remembered this from when you were trying to learn it, right?
Like, when I was trying to figure out how does Pulumi work. And what things happen. Wait, am I still sharing?
No, but I can. Here you go.
No, I don't want to. I wanted to.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't know if you were. Yeah, I turned it off because you were looking for something. But
cool. Yeah, no, that was the one thing.
So if you take a look in the chat, if you're paying attention to it, that's the link to the Pulumi program that Rizèl has that set up the stuff for the emojis. So there we go. We ticked our box that we talked about Pulumi. Yeah. Okay, good. Now we're leaving alone.
I put the Codespaces video. Well, I'm putting it in the chat right now. It talks about like how to set it up. Or how to set up your environment. I'll make Codespaces work for you. But yeah, I don't know what else to talk about. We could talk about GitHub Actions. Brian has a cool action that I think is helpful for open source contributors.
Oh, what's it do?
When you have when you have an issue opened and like the person wants to take it, you got to wait for someone to assign it to you. If you type
because you're saying if you don't have the rights to assign, like if I'm just like, I'm not a maintainer of the repo, but I want to call dibs on this issue.
Yeah, like you'd be like, I want this, and then you got to wait for the people who have the rights to actually assign it to you. He made an action that essentially, like, you can write in the comments .take, and it'll assign it to you. I think it's good because like it helps the maintainer so much. And then I edited it a little bit because I'm a big baby. Basically, I had taken an issue, and then someone else said .take, and I was like, they just took my issue. I
had dibs.
Yeah, I was excited to do that, so I edited it so that like if someone's already assigned, it won't assign somebody else afterwards. But yeah, I like GitHub Actions because it speeds up so much, and not just for like actual developers or like development things. You can do so much with it, you know?
Yeah, it's not necessarily just like your CI/CD. It's just like the things that like I found places where we have some stuff we do where like we bring in um it's almost like an easy enterprise scheduler, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? So like we have stuff that runs where we want to slurp in data from like Stack Overflow or Reddit, that goes into our tool we use called Orbit. That's just sort of measuring like
DevRel.
community engagement. So we have scripts that do that, and they run as GitHub Actions.
Yeah.
Now, I will tell you a pro tip. This is a fun fact. If you have a GitHub Actions running on a schedule and the repo hasn't had any activity in 60 days, they stop running. So if you have a repo
Really?
whose only point in life is to have your basically cron your GitHub Actions, you need to throw a commit in there or do something like once a month. So like, yeah, we've gotten burned by that a couple. It happens every 2 months because we forget about it, and all of a sudden we're like, why aren't we getting any more data from Reddit? And it's like, oh, because the GitHub Action was suspended because we don't touch that repo. Because
Gotcha.
why would we? So
GitHub's
that's
trying to save their money. They're like, not
well, I
you.
mean, it makes sense because
Yeah.
otherwise you could have this, you could have someone puts a thing in there and it's an abandoned project.
Yeah.
I mean, I totally understand why it's the way that it is. It's just like, oh, yeah, we should remember that.
Yeah.
All right, well, so Rizèl, like, thank you for coming and chatting and jamming. Like, I feel like every time I turn around on Twitter, you're doing something. You're presenting somewhere. You're doing something. Is there anything cool coming up? Are you getting to any? I don't want to put you on the spot about this, but like, you started doing developer advocacy like in the middle of COVID. Are you gonna find yourself like at any conferences? Are you speaking anywhere? Anything coming up?
Oh wait, yeah, I am. I'm going to be at New Relic's Future Hack thingy make jiggy, but that's in May.
Okay,
But I'm going to be there in real life in Las
it's
Vegas.
in
So
Vegas. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
so
so it is. If I recall correctly, I think it's the same time as KubeCon EU.
I think so. Maybe I don't know.
Um, I think some people from Pulumi are going to be. I just remember seeing that coming up, and I looked at the dates. And I'm like, oh,
Uh,
well, result. I would love to come and like see you give a talk and stuff, but I am going to unfortunately have to be in Valencia, Spain,
oh,
at that time. So,
that's no fear.
yeah,
Oh my god. Yeah, I would love it.
yeah, poor thing indeed.
Poor
Yes,
thing. Yeah, that's no fear. Valencia, Spain. Okay.
yeah,
Well, I gotta find myself at a conference that's in real life. I mean, like in a different country.
yeah,
But,
yeah. We'll get you there. We'll get you there. Yeah.
um,
So.
yeah. But that's
Well,
about
I will also just say, and this is for anybody, you've got a couple days, because I would be remiss if I didn't use my employer's reach to promote my own thing. So DevOps Days Chicago, which is a real life in person conference that will be taking place in September. Because we rescheduled it was originally going to be in May. We just had to change the date for a couple reasons. The CFP is open for another couple days. So it closes on March 31st. So anybody who, is into that thing, if you go to devopsdays.org/Chicago, I may or may not be the chair of the content committee. I'm not saying anything, but awesome. Yep, very excited. We've got a lot of great submissions, but even if you don't, I'm going to tell you, I think DevOps Day Chicago is the second best DevOps days in the US.
what's the first
The
one?
best one is Minneapolis. I'll just say it. It's fine. Even though it's not mine. DevOps Days Minneapolis is amazing. DevOps Day Chicago is also amazing. But cool. Rizèl, awesome. This was super fun. We're going to have to do more stuff like this. And thanks for joining us. Everybody who's tuned in, whatever platform you're watching us on, if you're on YouTube, make sure you push the subscribe button. If you're watching us on Twitch, smash that follow button. We have Another stream coming up on Thursday. I've got Allison Downey, and we are going to be exploring Q-Lang, and neither of us have any idea what it's about at all. That is our intent. It's apparently the new hotness, and we are going to just stumble our way through it. That'll be at the same time, but on Tuesday. And then next Tuesday, a week from now, same time, Paris Pittman, who's one of the on the Kubernetes steering committee, she's going to be joining me, and we're actually going to be talking about KubeCon and only a little bit about the beach, mostly about the content, but maybe a little bit about the beach. So follow us, and we'll see you. And Rizèl, thanks again.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
We will see you all on the internet.